Welcome and thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Evidently, you're unaware. I am your host, Andrea, also known as the Successful Diva, and I am greatly appreciative of you being here. If you're a first time viewer or listener, I appreciate you taking the time to check me out, check the platform out. If you are a regular and you meet me here every week, or you go through and watch some of the other episodes that have already aired, I thank you. I want all of you, first timers or not, become a subscriber. Turn on those notifications so that you are aware of what is happening and when here on the platform. Evidently, you're unaware. So we're here. Let's get smarter. And today we are going to get smarter about white collar crime. The 34 count convicted felon, as we all know what crime looks like as adults, we do, could very well be the modern day crime family. I watched The Sopranos and some of those other shows that showed how families, skirt the law and evade the law. And that's kind of what's happening in real life, in real time. And I want to highlight today white collar crime. And I would also like to bring to our attention, to the forefront, the term Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, affectionately known as the RICO Act. So let's start with some definitions. And before I do, I'm going to reference you back to a very short clip. I'll put the link here in the show notes as well, that I talked about the U.S. Treasury literally being robbed in real time in plain sight. And I hope you go back and watch that. It's about a 2-minute clip, and it just shows you what's really happening and how it is so daring and brazen, because it's not about what we're doing that's criminal behavior, says this administration. It's really, what are you going to do about it? And we dare you to say something or try to do something about it while we do it. And so that's kind of where this sits, at least in my opinion. So let's start with the definition. White collar crime refers to financially motivated, non-violent offenses typically committed by business and government officials. Does that sound familiar? Typically committed, nonviolent, by business and government officials. It relies on deception, fraud, and a breach of trust rather than physical force, and is usually committed by individuals or organizations to secure illicit gain. Sound familiar? Now let's talk about the RICO Act. The RICO Act is a law passed in 1970 used to prosecute ongoing criminal enterprises such as mobs, or gangs, or fraudulent corporate rings. And what happens is they get penalized through this law. They get penalized, the people who run those rings or who benefit from the organization's illegal scheme. So with those definitions in mind, white collar crime, RICO Act, family of people, organizations running or benefiting from the illicit schemes, I want to enter stage left, or I should say right in front of your screen, these people, starting with Bill Barr. We remember him. Bill Barr misrepresented the Mueller report. Imagine if he had just talked about that report the proper way and in the right context with truth. Mitch McConnell, that's our next, enabler. And he led the push for not one, but 2 impeachment acquittals. Imagine if the 34 count convicted felon had gotten impeached the first time and literally convicted, not acquitted, convicted. We may have never had to even see the second impeachment, but here we are. And now he's in another whole term, but he led that run. And at this stage of the game, this gentleman has the nerve to be opposed to the current nominee for acting director of national intelligence, Bill Pulte, because he claims Bill Pulte doesn't have enough intelligence experience. Well, let's just be honest. So does about 80 to 90% of this entire administration. It doesn't have the proper experience, but here we are. Then we go to this woman, Eileen Cannon, who blocked the Jack Smith report and later dismissed the entire criminal indictment against the 34 count convicted felon and two of his aides. Then we have Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court of the United States of America, slow walked the January 6th case and has led the ruling that has given the 34 count convicted felon absolute immunity for actions within their core constitutional powers. So, what else would a 34 count convicted felon do with absolute immunity? They complete acts within his core constitutional powers while occupying the position of President of the United States of America. And let's not forget this woman, Pam Bondi, withheld the Epstein files within which the 34 count convicted felon is allegedly mentioned over 38,000 times across more than 5,300 government documents, emails, and tip sheets. This level of corruption could never, ever, ever have occurred with such visibility, volume, and advance notice without enablers and without people daring to put their bold vision on paper in writing ahead of time. You may ask, who does that? People who govern, and they govern as if they've got absolute immunity, and they know that there's nothing that can be done above and beyond what may possibly get still scapegoated once they're not in office. But when you get this bold and brazen, you already know you've reached another whole level. And I don't even know if RICO Act would be the proper term for what we're seeing right now. But what I do know, that is as sure as eggs are still expensive, the level of corruption we are seeing could never, ever, it could have never, ever, ever been committed by this man. And he was the most guilty of wearing a tan suit into a press briefing. Isn't that something? Imagine that. Well, what you should be doing is sounding the alarm if you've not already done so. Crime families do not exist without participants, also known as enablers. Pay attention, because some of these enablers are already in office and they consent to the corruption by approving legislation and supporting candidates that allow criminal behavior to continue or worsen, i.e. Ken Paxton in Texas. Prime example. Additionally, some enablers already tethered to this administration at the local, state, and federal level, they want your vote. Do your research, because the 2026 primary election season is here. It's in full swing, and the general election is right behind it. Gotta know who you're voting for. My name is Andrea. I thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Evidently, you're unaware. I had to bring him up one more time. But nonetheless, he is that gentleman that we know could never be doing what this administration, not even a hair of a thumbnail in comparison. But inbox me if you have any comments, questions, Andrea@strategicblueprint.info. Follow me, subscribe, all of those things on YouTube at Evidently You're Unaware, on Blue Sky at thesuccessfuldiva.bsky.social, and on TikTok at EYU Podcast. I look forward to seeing you again soon.